So I want to get to, you do some really intentional stuff. Um, One of my favorite sayings, what gets calendared gets done. And I'm sure you borrowed that from somebody else or made it your own. But you have one of the most intentional calendars ever. And I don't know if I borrowed this from you or I just renamed something you taught me, but it's almost retrofitting your calendar. I think back to business will like expand and take over any
Totally.
spaces that you allow it to. You do a really cool practice where you put like the big rocks on first. And it's kind of that biblical story of, you put the rocks in the pitcher. Is it full? Oh yeah, it's full. And then you pour sand in and, oh wait, is it full now? Yeah, it's full. Oh, you pour the water in. Well, a lot of people do that in reverse with their calendar where it's like all the business is in there and there's no room for the big rocks. And you do a really intentional job with sabbaticals with Gail, with intentional lunch and dinner dates with your daughters, with you just took an amazing trip with one of your grandkiddos to Pebble Beach. So could you give us kind of a framework you look through for here's like looking in advance the year and how you retrofit that and put the right stuff on the calendar?
Yeah, well, that whole Big Rocks illustration comes from Dr. Stephen Covey, and you might be able to find this on YouTube. Unfortunately, this keeps getting taken down because it's copyrighted material, but I don't know why the Covey organization just doesn't post it somewhere because it's fabulous. But it's him doing a demonstration. This like goes back to the 80s or the 90s, so it's really bad video quality and all that, but the illustration has stuck with me. So what I try to do is usually in September, I will begin to plan the next year out. And I do this with my executive assistant, Jim, whom you know, Brad. And so Brad and I begin to lay out this next year. And by putting in the big rocks, what it means is we start with my vacations. So I'm going to take roughly 150 days off a year and maybe 160. That's going to count weekends as well. But I have to be intentional about that. I typically take a 1 month, I call it a sabbatical, but whatever you call it, it's a 1 month kind of, unplug away from everything kind of experience. And I've done that every year since I've had my current business. My company's called Full Focus. And so I started that in 2011, and I've done it every year since. So I put in those things first. Then and that makes sure that we build the business around my personal life, because the business is really important, but it's not as important as my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids. Those things take priority. In addition to that, one of the things that I do is I take one of my daughters out on a date for lunch on a rotating basis. So it's one daughter roughly every week. Now, obviously, we have to accommodate everybody's schedules. So I don't lay that out a year in advance. But Jim is usually out a month on that, just proactively. And if somebody can't do it, no problem. We'll go to the next person. We'll catch up. So it's a lot of coordination. But just that time of saying, you still matter to me as a person. And I want to just be at those lunches and really be the best listener I could possibly be, ask a lot of questions, be the safe place for them to land. And the things that they talk to me about are amazing. And, we've intentionally tried to shift our focus as the kids have grown up, and we can come back to this whole thing about parenting, coaching, friendship. But I just try to be a good friend. I try to respond like I would want a good friend of mine to respond in those times. Then the other thing you mentioned is, and this is really Gail's brainchild, I'm not sure where she got it from, but the idea is that when the grandkids turn 13, then we take them for a 1 week vacation, just the two of us plus them. And they can basically go anywhere they want as long as it's in the continental US. So every trip has been different. I think we're now on the sixth kid. And this summer we went, in fact, I just got back from it last week, but we went to Pebble Beach for a week. This grandson, Jonah, is a aspiring golfer. And so he thought it would be cool to go to Pebble Beach. Well, I kind of thought it would be cool too, because I golf, but I'd never been to Pebble Beach. So we did it. We took golf lessons out there. We played. We just had an amazing time. But what was really fun is when we came back We dropped him off at the house. This was like on Saturday night a week ago. And his mom, my oldest daughter, texted me and said, I just had the most amazing conversation with Jonah. Because I had told Megan and her husband Joel that Jonah was a very adventuresome eater. A lot of kids can get picky at that age, but he was eating all the craziest stuff, that you could eat when we were going out. And I was really proud of him for doing that. And so Megan had said to him, she said, yeah, well, Granddaddy said that you were really adventuresome in your eating. And he said to her, he said, well, I was, but that wasn't really what made it so special. She said, I just loved the conversations with Granddaddy and Grandmommy because we just sat in the restaurant after we ate and we just talked and we laughed and we told stories and told jokes. And that was my favorite part of the whole trip, which is not the thing. I've done enough of these now to know that's usually the thing. But you think it's where you go or it's what you do. There's got to be a lot of activities or whatever. It's never that. That just is an excuse for having these one-on-one times and these meaningful conversations. And those have been transformative. If when my older grandkids come to the lake, I mean, we have this instant rapport, instant bonding because, we took those trips and it made a difference.